In this video, I'm joined by my favorite crypto chart guy and one of my favorite Twitter accounts for the truth he spits on the daily, always making my day. So with no further ado, the one, the only Mr. Cosmo Jenkinz.
What is good?
Jenkinz in the house.
Can you hear me fine?
I can hear you. Good, man. And what about my end? All good?
It's all good. Yeah, I apologize to everybody for my lack of picture. I do not know what's going on this morning or this afternoon.
No worries, man. Good to see you. Good to get you on stream. It's been a minute. I think well over a year since we streamed together last.
Yeah, it's been a long time. I think last time we talked, we kind of had some like predictions for Pulse, and I remember we were kind of teasing people a little bit because everyone's like, "Oh, 100x right out the gate," you know, these crazy numbers, and I was kind of bullish. I was like, I think I said like 15 to 30 in the first year X. I'm like, I feel like I'll be closer than everybody. That still might be a little high right now, off the set rate.
Yeah, from the SAC rate. But I mean, we've had some highs already. We've had some lows. We've had some teething issues. Yeah. What's your take on the whole ecosystem so far?
It's just doing what it has to do. I mean, a lot of people have a lot of coins that just spawned in their wallets in the midst of a bloody bear market, and people haven't had money for a long time if they're just relying on their cryptos. So we're seeing the euphoria kind of hit us hard and the chart run up, and then we're seeing everybody kind of cash a little bit now, and then obviously people kind of, when those farms came out for Hex and Hex, at least, that a lot of people ruined their positions, and then you saw a whole divide between the two coins. And but it's just do what it has to do. You know, like I was actually impressed how well it performed right out the gate, at least Pulse. I didn't expect it to kind of pump that early, but it did. But at least now we're getting that normal kind of post-launch dip, which is good.
A bit of down. I think I just saw you tweet that the volume's been down as well in the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, it's definitely going down right now. But I mean, everything is across crypto, but at the same time too, it's like, yeah, Pulse has to we have to grow Pulse into beyond this, just the community that we have right now. If we want to see that insane success that we've seen in, Hex in 2020, 2021.
Sure. Going back to Hex quickly, you just touched on the eHex, pHex divide. What's your take on this?
I just tell people, like, obviously, if we had to pick one, we'd want to go with pHex, of course. It's on Pulse. We just want to support what's new. But I'm like, I don't agree with anybody that wants pHex just to die. I'm like, it makes no sense. And if anything, I've just seen, I mean, they kind of have close to parity now. I think pHex has a 25% premium on eHex right now. But like, people on Twitter they need Richard Hart to come out here, give us a live stream and speak so they can start mimicking his words again. Because when people start giving their own theories in the two coins, you obviously see there's not a lot of smart things are being said when people talk about this eHex pHex debate, and the coin's just not performing well at all. People are flooding their own bags without even realizing it. It's like eHex is going down, but pHex is going down with it, so people got to just chill out.
Everything's going down. What do you think is going to be RH's take on it, or what do you think he's thinking? Before, obviously, he's streamed. No one knows really.
The thing with Richard Hart is, like, you have to understand, which most people probably do understand, but I have to sneeze. There you go. Nope, it went away. With Richard Hart, he's a very salesy guy, right? So he's gonna obviously shill his own coin and his own product, so he's gonna favor pHex, but I also don't think he's going to give up on his baby in eHex. I do think that he's going to kind of push that narrative of, like, just seeing the better coin and the better chain perform a lot better, because that's going to mean everything on Pulse going up and to the right. And that's just kind of how he markets his products, which is good for all of us, of course. So I think he'll probably frame his approach on the pHex side, but I don't see him being an anti-eHex guy like a lot of his OGs are right now.
Yeah, there's definitely a huge divide. And I mean, like you said, it kind of makes sense. Obviously, PulseChain is the new, blockchain. pHex is the new Hex. But of course, nobody knows what's going to happen, right? It's all conjecture. It's all subjective. People are saying, you see people on Twitter saying this is going to happen and what's not, on both sides of the fence. But as we know, with crypto and many other stuff, people say stuff and it doesn't play out pretty much the way that they thought it would. So time will tell.
Yeah, I think the bear market hopefully taught us everything that we need to know, that, like, nobody knows anything, like myself included, like even Richard Hart. There's no human that knows anything. We can all have our speculation and projections, but nothing has gone according to plan based on what everybody's had to say. So
yeah. Time will tell, man. Time will tell. Well, listen, what's exciting is we have PulseChain. The last time we were streaming, we didn't have PulseChain. PLS is out. You said it performed pretty well at the beginning, but now obviously it's kind of, the FOMO is dying down. What do you think it's doing so far? Do you think it's normal? What's happening?
I think it's normal. I still think it's performing well. I mean, pHex or Pulse itself is still above the general sacrifice rate, which I'm like, wow. And I think people are going to defend that line. I know some of the bigger whales have that bonus factored in, so their sac rates are probably at like, instead of being at 0.001, it's probably 4 zeros and a 7 or an 8 or something. So I don't see it going that much lower. But I think Pulse is performing just fine. I'm impressed with it. Like I said, it's been in profit this entire time based on sac rate. PulseX, obviously not so much, but that was kind of expected. At least like if people have been following me, they kind of known that PulseX would be a slow starter, of course, because just so much of it's in so many people's hands that don't really have a reason or the cash to buy anymore, But yeah, for Pulse itself, I expected it to dip a little bit. I didn't want it to go under the sac rate, so far so good. But if it does, I kind of understand and get it. But that's just an opportunity right there. Now PulseX, I expected it to start slow. I just didn't think it'd be this low for that long. I was like, which I wasn't so crazy on PulseX out the gate, but I was kind of hoping for a better performance from it. But we'll kind of see how that develops.
Yeah, I know that you were talking about the pre-bridge ratios and how much you're enjoying scooping up quite a bit there.
Yeah, I grabbed a ton of PulseX that I did not. My plan was to have X amount, and I exceeded that and then some. And I was like, wow, I was teasing some guys on Twitter, like, man, I might become like a PulseX maxi just because of how much I grabbed, like K4K Crypto and all those guys. All these guys that came around and started doing their content after PulseX sacrifice happened when they're sacrificing 30-cent hex. I'm like, of course they're gonna love this coin. But I grabbed a ton of PulseX. So at least with me though, like I try to just stay, like unbiased, rational as possible. And people will claim that I fund my own bags, but that's not the case. I just speak the truth. And if the sentiment changes on a coin that I just so happen to hold, it is what it is. What I don't want to have is the reputation of a guy that just blindly shills. And I feel like in Hex during the bull market 2021, maybe I got a little too excited about stuff like that. And I didn't want to be that guy. So I definitely changed my approach. And yeah, I just kind of analyze things for what they are, because I guess our goal is to talk to the people that want to learn more, that want to know more. And of course, 95% of people are just going to say nothing but good things. And I'm not saying negativity is a good thing, but I just think having perspective and context when looking at these assets is always valuable. So hopefully I can at least fill that role. But yeah, in regards to that, this Pulse is doing just fine. PulseX, not so much yet. So we'll see.
That's what I like about you, man. You look at things and you tell it how it is. A lot of the time, you don't sugarcoat it, even if you're holding a big bag of it, or even if you're not. I've seen you do, TA on stuff. You hold and what you don't hold, and you just look at the charts. Talking about the charts, maybe we'll have a look at the PLS chart if that's cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Is my screen on your thing?
Yep, that's
it. Cool. Let me get a drink of water real quick. So I got my multi-charts here. So PLS, Pulse itself, this is the daily chart. So, I mean, pre or post bridge, when the bridge finally opened up, we were like, there's a ton of price action that was like way down here, but that was back when nobody can get their liquidity into the actual chain itself. That all disappeared on day two, what you see here. They just kind of shot up, shot down, and kind of balanced itself out. But I'll go to like a 4-hour chart to get more of a better idea what price has kind of been doing. But yeah, this is the volatility early on was just people that barely got their money into it, and then people that first was able to cash out. Then that second wave of people on the bridge finally got in. That second wave of sellers finally got out, and then we kind of saw things settle down right here. This is about 60% over the sac rate, and the sac rate right here is this yellow line. So that's where, with not counting the bonus for being however early you are, this was the general sac rate heading into Pulse. And percentage-wise, for the people that don't know, to the right of my cursor over here, if you see like 5.154, that's just 54%. This would be like 78%. So that's when I'm talking percentages, it's really easy to do the math because of the number going right off this whole number. But yeah, essentially, like, yeah, when the bridge kind of finally opened up, we saw the price really open up around 70-ish, 60 to 70% over that sac rate. And then, yeah, that euphoric kind of like FOMO, everybody got in, wanted to get their hands on Pulse. This early on was like a lot of people in PulseX that wanted to get their hands on Pulse. Not everyone was able to get their hands on Pulse because of the lack of sacrifices for Pulse itself. But we had that whole saga for like 5 to 7 days where people were just having people send them, hey, send me $5 worth of Pulse so I can swap my PulseX for it. So that was like the whole FOMO to get their hands on it. And the bridge just totally opened up, kind of got that top. And then if you're looking at a chart, 101 on any coin, especially meme coins or any brand new coin, whenever you see your first top, you always get that pullback. But if you get that second top and it's lower than that first top, a lower high, that's one of the most bearish things you can see in a chart. A lot of my times when I buy meme coins and stuff, whenever I see that big blow off top, and by any means, this is not a blow off top. This is just a random like pump. I wouldn't call this like a big blow off top like that. There's no parabolic move just yet in Pulse, but just to give like, I guess like insight on meme coins, whenever I would see like a big blow off top, I'm like, oh man, I'm up 10, 15, 20x in my bag. And I see that big pullback and then I see another push up towards the top. Whatever I see this top come into a higher low or a lower high and I see the price pull back, that I'm secured my profits usually in this area because that usually signals the start of a 60 to 80% dip. Now, did I see that coming in Pulse? No, I didn't really treat it like as a meme coin. I wasn't really trying to sell any of my Pulse, but just for a chart purpose, I mean, hindsight's 2020. But anytime you see stuff like that, that's the first kind of thing you look for in a low liquidity coin. Is like, okay, the moment you don't make a higher high, get ready for that first pullback. But essentially, where we at? We're June 7th today, so this is from the last time I streamed, so it's kind of far back. But we kind of had this bottom here. This green line doesn't really matter anymore, so I'd delete that. Let me just refresh it. But we did have a support line at one point, turn into resistance. You saw price hold here, flip, and then tap, tap. Price broke under, flipped to resistance, came up, confirmed the resistance, shot down to that sacrifice rate. Everybody defended the sac rate, but since then, I mean, price has kind of worked its way back up. It couldn't necessarily get to this range just yet, but it was close enough to say it tapped that resistance again. Now looking at Pulse, I mean, the chart doesn't look like mega bearish. I'm not going to lie. It doesn't look bad. I'm not going to sit here and try to call the bottom or anything, but when you see this big support we kind of found here, not counting that wick, we're kind of getting to that general range. Now, in a bearish chart, you'll see it'll be kind of like opposite where like you'll see like a big volatile dip and then you'll slowly see accumulation, then a big volatile dip. In this scenario, you kind of have a volatile rip to the upside and then it looks like an opposite, like the accumulation buyers getting in. So that's good that you see a kind of a slower push down. Now, do I think we're going to bottom off here? I just think this 20% range above the sacrifice rate is such a random range to find a bottom at. If it happens, great, but I want to be shocked to see us flirt with the sacrifice rate again. But the only thing from a technical and purely technical standpoint that would talk me out of that is just, this accumulation of buyers right here. They might be strong enough to set, a bottom right here, but I don't see this thing going too much lower than the sacrifice rate as of right now. Who knows what could happen, but as of right now, that's what the chart's telling me on 4 hour.
So do you think this, obviously it's not helping that obviously we're in a bear market and everything's pulling back at the same time too. So you think people are just going to dry powder, waiting for more of a dip?
I am, so I did test the bridge to just, sell a little bit, send it over to the Ethereum side, send it back, cash out. So I did test a little bit and I did take a solid chunk off. I won't say where because I don't want people to like track. I did take a solid chunk off, like a little bit over here. And it's a good amount of money. I mean, not a lot, but it's a good amount of money in terms of just strictly crypto money. Yeah. But I do have stables from the bear market that like I would like to add around this range. But I mean, the greediness in me, I want to see this thing go like 10, 20% under sac rate. That's ideal. But I mean, anything in this range between that, I mean, at this point, when you see like new charts, one day we're going to look at this chart and this whole thing of price action is going to be, this whole thing of price action is going to be this tiny. And then we're going to see a chart that's going to be like this, and then none of this will matter whether you're buying at the black line, whether you're buying double the price, whether you're buying here, it won't really matter. So I definitely do have some stables I'm sitting in. And I'm slowly, I got my eyes on Pulse with actual fiat right now. I did like you said, with the ratios pre-bridge or post-launch, but pre-bridge. I loaded up on plenty of PulseX. So yeah, with actual fiat, this is the coin I'm definitely looking at. Not financial advice, but yeah.
So in regards to your PulseX change of mind, because you weren't a massive bull, you said in the PulseX sacrifice phase, what changed your mind about it?
What changed my mind about being bullish on PulseX, as you're saying?
Yeah, the buy and burn, or was it?
So the thing is with PulseX, I'm never gonna fade a coin that's made by Richard Hart. That's one thing. So if Richard Hart made a shit meme coin, I would load up on it, you know. So that's just one thing. I'm like, I'm not gonna miss out on PulseX by any means. I did sacrifice for PulseX. I was really early on that, but nothing really changed it. I just saw ratios that were way too juicy. I was like, okay, I'm not going to sit here. If you're getting 8 to 10 PulseX per pulse, I'm like, come on, we're not seeing that. We're seeing it trade around. You're getting 2.5 PulseX per pulse now. It might go down to 2. It might go to 3. It's going to probably stay around that range for a long time, maybe forever. But I'm like, when you're getting 8 to 10 plus after the launch of the chain, I was like, man. So I didn't really have to like trade that much pulse to get PulseX, but here I am with the fat bag, and I'm like, so personally, like my mind doesn't change. Like nothing changes my mind in terms of like how I feel or my sentiment on it. Like just looking at a chart, of course, if I bring up the PulseX chart,
yeah,
like,
sure.
I mean, for my last TA stream I did, if I extend this range over, we clearly flipped this to a resistance line. But you can see these ranges I drew out. Like, look at how the price kind of just traded off these ranges. It came down to this bottom range. I had this drawn out before it came down there. And obviously it did that. Came back up, stayed in this range. It did wick this resistance line now, but now it's kind of sitting in this range again. So kind of the same sentiment with Pulse. Like, you could see a bottom eventually, right? Yeah, these things aren't going to go down forever. You know, Hex, I think, turned around after 21 or 33 days. We're almost at that 3 heading into 4 weeks of PulseChain itself. So I wouldn't expect him to go down forever, but I guess, sorry, I got sidetracked. But to answer your question, nothing changed. Like, I tease people on Twitter because I'm like, man, I can be a big time PulseX maxi now because I have so much of it. But I'm like, I'm just not expecting much out of the coin yet. There's not enough volume pumping in the chain yet in the exchange to really fuel that buy and burn. Now, I thought it was funny that the first version of liquidity farming, people were supposed to get, rewards for farming, but all those rewards went to the buy and burn. So I'm like, that was kind of a funny bug to see people kind of like get caught off guard with that. So I'm like, who knows how low the price could have actually went if Richard Hart wasn't, or if the code wasn't feeding this buy and burn to hold this price up initially. So that's one thing I thought, like, man, maybe that was kind of a mistake by design if I want to be a conspiracy theorist, because the people who created it might have known how low this thing could have really went. But at the end of the day, I mean, it still went to the buy and burn, held it up. But I think the buy and burn is a really bullish thing on Pulse. I think it's a coin that we can absolutely be mega bullish on. The only problem with it is not the coin itself. It's just the amount of holders, right? So you got to think, like, how many people missed out on Hex that bought the 2021 top when they first found out about PulseChain? How many people joined the community after the PulseChain sacrifice ended? How many people, every single person in this community, got a piece of that PulseX pie? Not everyone got a piece of that Hex pie. Not everyone got a piece of that Pulse pie. Every single person has PulseX. That alone, the simple law of supply and demand, there's just too much supply in people's hands of PulseX right now early. So we just got to let that wash out a little bit. Let people get, intrigued by trading. Let this thing pump. Give us a 2-3x. Then you're really going to see people like, wow, I'm actually making money in crypto for the first time. Let me see what I can do with it. Let me trade it for this and that. And then you'll go through that wave. And then once you clear out enough of enough of the supply and the abundance of people holding it, this thing will start to take off. I do think there's a flaw in the logic of people who say, oh, this PulseX buy and burn is going to hold us up forever. Imagine $600,000 buying each day. Like, if you guys are relying on PulseX buy and burn, like, you guys are in for a long ride, because one day it will work, but it's not going to work anytime soon. And we're seeing that.
Yeah, I think we need more volume for that to really take to make a difference. Obviously, we're deep in the bear market, and the FOMO of the early days has worn off. What have you seen online in terms of sentiment? Have you seen people changing their tune who were maybe really bearish or quite derogatory about PulseChain, now kind of like, okay, this is a real thing and it's actually doing stuff?
I will say, I guess in the mainstream crypto, for whatever that is, but just people that aren't in this community that cover crypto, that have podcasts and stuff that just talk general crypto, the common theme I see is like, oh, PulseChain launch, Richard Hart, it was a flop. It's down 60% in the first few days. PulseX had a bug. I've seen that on one of these podcasts that a lot of people listen to. My brother actually sent it to me. I was like, you of all people would send me this. But I would say general crypto, they're not seeing this as anything too like exciting or too like fantastic. They're just kind of like, oh, PulseChain's out. It's not doing much in terms of price. People heard about one bug in PulseX that had nothing to do with PulseChain, and they'll take that and run with it. Obviously, people have their feelings about Richard Hart and his sacrifice phase and him doing his outrage marketing and spending all the sack money on outfits and running away. And so, I mean, I would say the general sentiment, I don't think people outside of this community, I don't see the hype yet. Now, I do think that a lot of that comes from people who are aware of PulseChain that didn't get a piece of the pie, that are kind of hoping for it to stay down. So maybe they're just purposely or strategically fudding it. So I'll say general crypto, I don't really see the excitement there. In terms of the community, obviously the excitement's there, but I feel like it's definitely calmed down. I will say the biggest flame that's been kind of put out was the PulseX community flame. Like that was one thing that kind of annoyed me leading up to the launch of Pulse. Is anytime I gave my analysis on PulseX and what I think might happen, if I'm just not mega bullish on it, I wouldn't get attacked, but I'd get a lot of people just kind of like annoying me about like, oh, why don't you say good things? I'm like, I'm not fudding it. I'm like, guys, let me just say what I have to say about it and let it be. And I'm kind of glad that super hot flame is kind of went out a little bit on PulseX. PulseChain itself, I feel like everything's all good and great over here. I don't see any sentiment change from bullish to bearish. I feel like everyone's still excited, just kind of patiently waiting for the bull market to return. I will say Hex, there's a lot of non-believers I've noticed. I feel like a lot of people are starting to give up. I feel like there's a lot of division within the Hex side of the community, of course, like we talked about with the eHex pHex thing. So I feel like Hex, obviously, you're seeing that price performance, and it's not doing well at all. Oh wait, do I show you the right screen? Oh, I'm looking at the wrong screen. Yeah, I like the price performance of Hex is not doing well at all. So I feel like there's a lot of confusion in the Hex side of things, which is good for me because I'm like, Hex, the code isn't going to change. Whether people like it or love it now, it's not going to matter. All it takes is one bull market, one pump for everybody to be back on board. It's just a matter of like, are you going to fumble your bag at the bottom? Are you going to add to your bag at the bottom? Are you simply going to hold and just weather the storm? So I would say in general, the sentiment on Hex and PulseX has kind of died down a little bit. The crypto market doesn't really care too much about PulseChain, but the community itself is still feeling really good about PulseChain itself.
I like what you said in one of your last tweets. I think it was the one about the 24-hour volume where you said, the PulseChain volume's down for 2 straight weeks. It's important for the community to expand and get other communities into Pulse to build. Screaming at people on Twitter for liking other coins outside Hex is no longer beneficial. Never was. That's so true, man. That's so true.
Yeah, and it's like it just is, and it's been annoying since day one. And I don't know if you remember, you probably do. Back when I was doing my Chad Jenkinz, you're part of those streams. I was doing my kind of Chad Jenkinz live like meme coin trading for like January, February, March of last year. I mean, you saw it like on stream. We were crushing meme coin. I mean, we didn't win every meme coin, of course. That's how it works. But we were crushing like insane profits on a lot of meme coins. And my fault was going public with that because I didn't realize how stressful it would get just listening to people try to take that as financial advice, and people would make the same decisions I would make. Even though I told them like, hey, don't buy this. I bought this. You don't buy this. I'm going to sell this. No matter how many disclaimers we'd give, people will still be let down. But at that stage, I realized like how toxic the community can really be. And now looking back, we're a year later. Like one of the smartest things I did for my entire portfolio was leave Hex and start putting my money into meme coins and stuff because I made money while Hex was slowly bleeding. Because at that point, Hex was 30 cents, 20 cents, 15, then 10, 5, 2, 12. Now it's down to 1. eHex is about to go under a penny. So I'm like, It's just, you can't rely on nothing but your own community. And I can't say too much, but the cool thing about being like Jenkinz on Twitter is a lot of people tell me a lot of things in private. I don't have any insider information, so don't think it's like that. I know there's a lot of people that have like these groups on Telegram that they think they're insiders that are not. But I don't have insider information, but I know I've heard a lot of stories about a lot of the most well-known, trusted Hex streamers, OGs that aren't the best actors in the market. There's streamers that have literally dumped their Hex live on stream while on the stream telling you to buy and stake, and people are laughing about it behind the scenes. And there's a lot of messed up stuff going on by the people that the community admires the most, just because they are OGs, and most of them are good people. Don't get me wrong. I fuck with a lot of people. Sorry, I mess with a lot of people in this community. I like a lot of the people in this community. This is a great community, but you just can't trust these people, man. These people are participating in the same market that you're participating in. And if you win, one person usually loses, one person's profit is another person's, exit liquidity, or you are exit liquidity for someone's profit. So, but I will say, like, to kind of go back to the question is, yeah, we have to expand. And the people defending, hey, only talk about Hex, only buy Hex, and you're going to get wrecked if you buy a non-Richard Hart token. Those are just people that are simply protecting their bags. And I get it. It's like psychologically, they don't want to see their bag lose money. They don't want people to talk about other coins. And that was the theme when there was nothing but Hex to buy. Now, Richard Hart himself has 5 coins, eHex, pHex, PulseX, even incentive token himself. I'm like, now there's 5 tokens that you're seeing. Everybody's splitting up all their money across all these tokens, and it's causing the same thing. You're seeing Hex just look, and Hex is not dead, but the price chart's looking dead, These coins aren't pumping. So many people are just balancing out and diversifying their Hex coins into other coins now. And it's like, they're masking it. They're doing the same thing that they told everyone not to do last year, but they're just masking it by saying, oh, you're safe because it's a Richard Hart token. It's like, no. And that's why I don't get the eHex pHex debate. It's like, oh, if eHex doesn't do well and there's parity, it's going to hold pHex down. But it's like, you guys don't understand. The same group of investors are also diversifying into Pulse and PulseX. So if you're not going to like one of the coins, you got to not like all the coins. It's just an outdated mentality that's not going to help this community progress and move forward. And of course, I'm not saying go out there and just shill a bunch of random trash coins, but you have to understand, like, if you get people on PulseChain trading memes and you're seeing memes do 10, 20, 30, 40, 100x, there's a lot of exchanges being processed through PulseX that's feeding the buy and burn. That's going to help PulseX itself pump. It's a lot of burning. It's going to go down from the validators that are helping the transactions process and Pulse itself. It's just good for the community to get people on this chain. So in regards to that tweet, yeah, like we need to just expand our minds a little bit. And I'm kind of taking that approach. I'm not going full Chad Jenkinz anymore, but at this point, I'm like, I'm taught, like, if there's something that needs to be talked about, like Pepe, the frog coin that really changed a lot of people's lives a few months ago in ETH, that coin's on PulseChain right now. Not gonna lie, I have a bag of it, so I'm not gonna sit here and chill it. But like that coin, it's gonna grab people's attention. If there's something that's being talked about across the crypto market, and we can get those coins that pump on ETH to pump on PulseChain, and people are making tons of money on PulseChain, what's that gonna do? Bring a broader audience to PulseChain, So it's just necessary. We can't just sit here and swim in a fishbowl that's, it's basically a community swimming in a fishbowl that's surrounded in an entire ocean, So we got to expand.
I think you're 100% on the money. In life, I think your antenna should go up. You should be suspicious, not just in crypto, but when someone in anything, when they're like, this is the way to do things. And if you disagree, if you're not with me, you're against me. And it's like, whoa, life is so nuanced. There's so many different things you can do. Now let's go back to crypto. When someone's chilling, like, this is the only coin you should be buying. And if you're not, like, you're a traitor, blah, blah, blah. It's like, your antenna should go up. That's not, you're obviously trying to protect your own bags, or, you're overly invested in that coin. So like you said, people need to do their own research, and in any community, and whenever people get together, there's going to be a few unsavory characters, right? So you need to discern who to believe and who not to believe.
Yeah, absolutely. The people that are preaching you that message are the people that are selling on your head. So it's like, it's being led by those people. Just because they're OGs or they have a lot of hex or they have a lot of followers. And granted, I guess I do have a lot of followers for what it's worth compared to the community, but like in general, like the people that have followers in this community, like don't let followers or like status in terms of how early they invested be a reason why you should trust somebody, because there's a lot of people that are just, they're selling you down while they're preaching one thing on Twitter or on YouTube and they're doing the exact opposite in the actual market. And the price chart is showing that. I mean, it's clear at this point. There's only a select few people that can actually sell a lot of profit at this point.
I mean, it's actions speak louder than words. So yeah, anyone can say anything, right? But obviously over time, people's kind of character is revealed through their actions.
I will say this. I will say this. There's some smart people in crypto right now that are kind of a part of the Hex community that are kind of not. That I mean, I don't think it's a bad thing, but they're like straight up like nerds that know how to work this technology, and they're kind of doing all these tracking sorts of measures, following IP addresses and stuff to see. There's hexagons that are quote unquote hexagons that are making, shit coins and putting them out there and acting like Richard Hart Maxey's on Twitter and stuff. And there's certain people out there that are tracking wallets and tying it to people's names now. And I feel like the truth will come out sooner than later, and if you're out there, just go get your money. But if you're one of those people that is preaching one thing and doing the exact opposite, I think that'll kind of catch up to people soon enough. So for the people that are true and honest, you're good. For the people that are not, it'll kind of,
Karma's a bitch. I guess it all catches up with us in the end.
Yeah.
One more chart. Let's have a look at pHex if that's cool and see how that's doing and
pHex,
how
that
might be playing out. There's a few questions about it in the comments.
Yeah. So Hex on Wrap Pulse. So last time we were streaming, this thing, it was looking good for a while. We had this falling wedge that it looked like it wanted to break out. This is a crooked line. I wanted to see it come to this resistance line here and see what the price would do. Get up here, try to fight back and bounce off this range. Obviously, price did not do that. So it actually became a lot weaker. Now we got the breakout out of that falling wedge. Excuse me. Sorry. Let me delete all this mess. We had this little bit of a falling wedge. Price broke out. Nice volatile breakout. That's what you want to see when you see these falling wedge patterns. Price just couldn't work its way too far up to this resistance. But if I move this line down, now in hindsight, it's a clear resistance. Look at that top. That top. Boom. Top right there. Top right there. So, I mean, there's a clear resistance at 1.9 cents on pHex. And quite frankly, this range didn't really hold as much of a support either. But if you extend it out, this range did hold a nice resistance. You see that resistance tap there. Broke, kind of held support, broke under resistance. Now it's working its way down. We're currently kind of sitting at the lows. I don't like to call these the all-time lows just because that was such a weird time of when PulseChain launched. But looking at these lows, it's kind of in the same. All these coins are in the same situation. If you looked at Pulse, it kind of had the sacrifice rate. It was flirting with that bottom. PulseX is at like a 50% under the rate. It's almost at the bottom. Hex, it's at 1.4 cents. It's kind of forming a double bottom. So all this doesn't really rely on the investors themselves. All of this kind of relies on, I guess, the broad market. We need to see something good happen in the market. We need to see everything kind of go up. If everything goes up, you're going to see these coins kind of break through this resistance and work their way up to the next stage of resistance, but if everything continues to tank, we had a very bearish week with the whole SEC Binance kind of thing. Bitcoin had that wick down to the 25,000 range with the moving average. Obviously everything on PulseChain started to tank. Crypto just took a dump, so ideally, since we're all investors, we would like to see a double bottom here, but I wouldn't be shocked to see a little bit of like a liquidation, kind of like a miniature Max Payne of the first month of investing into Pulse and everything on it, where things kind of wick under, scare people a little bit, then work their way up, kind of like how we saw Hex have that bottom at 4 zeros, then a 5 back in 2020. So everything's kind of moving together right now. That's the only bad thing about doing technical analysis on PulseChain with all these coins is everything kind of has a similar chart. So by the time I talk about the third, fourth, and fifth coin, I'm kind of saying the same thing, but at least Hex is a little different. But I guess we really just want to hope for this double bottom here. But even if this thing has a temporary pump, it has to get over 1.5 cents. If this thing can't get over 1.5 cents anytime soon, it's only any weaker. The more you tap on this floor, the weaker it gets. It's eventually going to break. So you don't want to spend too much time down here. And that goes for all the assets on this chain right now.
When, in your opinion, do you think the next the real crypto bull market will return?
So I'm a believer that the bottom's in, and that's been my stance for a while now. I believe the bottom's in. Now, the hex bottom, it's funky. Like, I called that hex bottom at 1.7 cents when there's only eHex. If you combine the two hex prices, we have what, 1.09 and 1. So we're technically at almost 2.5 cent hex right now. So we still got a little ways to go to get down to that 1.7 combined price. Bitcoin, I don't think is going to go as low as 10K like Richard Hart called when he first called, around the top. But I'm a believer that the bottom's in. I'm also a believer that this market's not going to pump anytime soon. And I've been saying this since the beginning of the year that we're going to see a crab market the entire year, in the sense that everything's just going to move sideways. I don't think we're going to make newer lows. Now, eHex, of course, by itself is already making newer lows. So Hex is a different story because you had the stock split pretty much, and there's two assets. But like Bitcoin, Ethereum, the crypto market, I don't think we're going too much lower. I think we're just going to kind of chop, stay sideways, and then bull markets probably, in my opinion. Maybe we might see like November-ish of this year, we might see a turn of sentiment, and then we might start seeing some real pumps coming in the 2024 year. And you got to think 2024 is the election year, so things can go. It'll be volatile. It can go one of two ways. I mean, obviously, when Trump was president, the election year wasn't a good year. I mean, technically, it kind of was a good year because, well, I'm trying to think, because 2020, well, that was the COVID year, wasn't it? Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that was a great year, actually. It was volatile. The world did what it had to do to throw off the markets, but the markets recovered and then some. So we have an election year coming up. Now, granted, the people that kind of, did that whole pandemic thing are the people that are in the driver's seat this time around. So let's see the antics from the opposite side. And I think when it comes to politics and crypto, it's a good blend. And when politics kind of heat up and get exciting during election years for presidents, it's usually a good thing. So we might see some volatility, a crab market, maybe a big liquidation down, kind of like how COVID gave us in early 2020. We might see that early 2024. But just like, I'm going to show you one chart real quick, just because it's easier to explain. Where are we at? Oh, hang on. Let me go to Trading View. I just want to show you the Bitcoin chart just so people can see what I'm talking about.
Sure.
Like in my head, I imagine it perfectly, but I'm sure a lot of people watching probably don't know what I'm talking about when I just kind of say it without showing it. All right. Do you see that Bitcoin chart?
Let's have a look. Yep.
Okay, cool. So 18, 19. So this is basically heading into 2020. This was an election year this year. But heading like in 2019, we saw the markets, the sentiment kind of flipped, right? The sentiment flipped. The market started pumping all of 2019. Then it kind of pulled back. Then 2020 came. We started ripping again. And then COVID, boom, a volatile rip down, liquidation candle. Once we kind of cleared out those, all of the liquidity, the market just took off and ripped. We had a bull market. Now, 2023 that we're at. By the way, I drew this up a long time ago in Crypto Cabana stream. I talked about a Bitcoin at 30K coming all the way down to this 200 moving average, and it's exactly what it did, and it bounced. So things are so – that's why I'm a believer the bottom's in. But excuse me. I can see the market kind of just chopping, staying sideways for the rest of the year, and then maybe something in 2024 you might get – like early November, maybe like around – we will stay sideways, and come November around like this – time frame, we might start seeing everything kick back up again. And then heading into 2024, you might see some type of event during the presidential election kind of theme going on that something gets liquidated again, and then we just shoot up. So I can see a 2024 bull run heading into 2025, and I don't think it's going to last that long, but I do think there'll be enough gains out there for people to really change their life if they decide to, capture them,
Sure. So what about a mini bull market, like a PulseChain ecosystem mini bull this summer?
Oh yeah, I think we can get there. I think we will get there. I just think PulseChain needs to kind of bottom out, and then we just need to see all that crypto-wide FUD going throughout the entire market kind of settle down. But I think sooner or later you'll see Pulse kind of bottom around this yellow range here. PulseX will kind of bottom somewhere in the middle of these candles, if this can't hold the double bottom here, I think Pulse, any new coin will rip, especially in the start of a bull market. So once the sentiment flips good for like crypto as a whole, you'll see everything on Pulse just start to absolutely rip. Now, I feel like the upside's a little limited in Pulse. It's not going to be as crazy as like, 10,000x hex, just because it's a different environment this time around, and there's so many different people holding different positions, and there's a lot more money to be cashed out than there was in 2019. So I feel like, but that's not a problem. Not everyone needs a 10,000x, and by the way, no one caught a 10,000x in hex. It's just good for marketing. All you need, I mean, if you can grab 100x on a good investment, you're good. If you can grab 1,000, anybody's retired off 1,000x off a good investment. So, but I can see a pulse ecosystem bull market kicking off a little bit before Bitcoins. If you think about Hex, that's what happened in Hex back in 2021. Hex ripped from 1 cent up to 50 cents, while Bitcoin was kind of dipping from 65 down to 30. And then Hex topped off, as Bitcoin made its second run up to all-time highs. So I can see that happening.
Yep. I mean, that was a really interesting time, especially around the PLS sacrifice, when it just started ripping. If anyone was around at that time,
and then again, there's definitely a lot of outside factors that caused that. And you got to think and I'm not trying to be fuddish at all. I'm just trying to give people perspective. Like the two biggest pumps in Hex, one was the God Whale back in 2020, where that thing ripped 11x and then never came back down. And then 2021, it went from 1 to 50 cents, but that was basically PulseChain hype. So there's two big factors that caused the biggest pumps in Hex. That I made a tweet a while ago saying hey, Richard Hart's the one and only guy that can expand this community and cause Pulse to pump. No, he doesn't work for us. No, I don't expect him to, blah, blah, blah. But if there's anybody that's going to cause a pump, it will be Richard Hart himself. So people didn't like that. A couple Hex OGs didn't like it at all. But I'm like, guys, as important that I think we are as a community, we absolutely are important. Me, myself, I think I'm important too. But I understand that we're not moving this the way that Richard Hart is moving this, because he's the one that got Hex moving. He's going to be the one that gets PulseChain moving. It's just a matter of what he decides to strike. So I don't think he's in jail, or I don't think the SEC has him all locked up right now and people are saying he's quiet, or people say there's an AI Richard Hart making that 14-second PulseChain video and stuff. I'm like, no. If you look at his tweets, he says stuff that's so smart that a general person can't type that. It's Richard Hart typing that. So I just think he's waiting for the right time to go live. Why would he want to go live while all of his assets are tanking? And it's like, what's the point of going live in the first 33 days of Hex when it was down 85%? But he was live every day when it was ripping, tens, hundreds of X, so it's just a matter of time.
What are you, or if you don't mind me asking, are you DCAing into your favorites on PulseChain, or are you just waiting for dips strategically?
Yeah. I'm DCA. I'm DCAing. My main focus is Pulse. I just like Pulse the most. I just think it's going to be the best performer. Like I said, I loaded up on a ton of PulseX. I don't plan on touching that anytime soon. If the ratios get nice enough again, which I don't know what nice to me is anymore, because anything under 6 to 1, I'm kind of like, eh. But if the ratios get it back 1 to 5 or 1 to 4 or something, maybe kind of mess around with PulseX again. But I'm really focused on Pulse right now. I have a nice bag that I'm happy with. If I didn't add to it ever again, I'd comfortably, be peaceful with it. But it's crypto. You can never have too much. So I feel like I have too much PulseX, honestly. So, but Pulse, I feel like I need more.
Sure. What do you think? Apart from people selling below the sacrifice number, what other things have you seen people that when you see maybe the way their sentiment is or their actions are, what do you think? God, people just need to stop doing that. Have you seen anything since obviously PulseChain's gone live?
I feel like, man, it's hard to. These are good questions. It's just hard for me to answer them honestly without sounding mean. But honestly,
be honest, bro.
Yeah, I just think people need to stop talking. There's these people, like I said, and I don't mean to sound redundant, but I meant that. And it wasn't even, it was kind of a troll, but it kind of wasn't, when I talked about Richard Hart needs to go live again and give his community a bunch of things to just start repeating. Because when he's going live in 2020, 2021, everybody here sounded like a genius. And technically we were all geniuses because he taught us the way. I'm not going to deny that. You watch an hour of Richard Hart, you're a smarter person when it comes to crypto. Now Richard Hart's not out there kind of giving people the words to think. I'm seeing a lot of people just kind of give their analysis, and people that I once thought was like, oh, you guys really kind of know the way. You're a high quality investor. I'm just seeing a talk. And I'm like, I don't think people really are as smart as we once thought they were. So I'm like, people just got to chill, like chill with the opinions, right? And maybe me too. I can chill with my opinions on Twitter, of course. Everything I tweet's not always going to be right, of course. I say a lot of things. You know how I am on Twitter. So, and myself included, I think we all just kind of have to talk less, but I just can't stop. Whenever I see something I need a voice, I just have to voice it, whether it's right or
your
wrong.
tweets are gold, man. They make my day. Just little replies, little comments here and there. They're truth a lot of the time.
I just have fun on Twitter because I'm like, me personally, like if crypto just died tomorrow and I couldn't cash out a single dollar ever again, I'd be A-okay in my life. Like I didn't position my life to where I have to rely on crypto to survive. So I'm like, I'm just the type of guy that if it doesn't work out, okay, if you're good at something, you'll do it once. If you're great at something, you'll be able to do it multiple times. So I'm like, if I can make money one time in one way in crypto, I can make it another way anywhere else. So I'm like, I'm just prepared for that. And I have backup plans at all costs. So it's easy for me to kind of have that rational opinion, I would say, an unbiased opinion. But also too, another thing I tell people to chill on, everybody thinks Richard Hart has this like master plan of like, oh, he's not streaming, he's shaking out the weak hands, or, oh, he's outrage marketing to shake out the weak hands. Like, I don't think anything's a master plan. I genuinely think this launch didn't go as perfect as he wanted it to go. I don't think he wanted to wait 2 years for it. I don't think he wanted Hex to do as poorly as it did over the years. I just think that Richard Hart didn't execute as perfectly as we thought he would. So, and there's a book called Ego is the Enemy that I'm a really big fan of, and it just talks about once
Ryan
you
Holiday.
start Once you start believing in your own greatness, you're complacent from that moment on. And I feel like Richard Hart went through that phase. And the problem was the community didn't tell him wrong. But there's a few people out there that would, myself included, but I was the bad guy. Just trying to keep him honest. You know, I feel like I'm a really good friend. I genuinely care about him. I'm the type of friend that's just going to be honest, whether he's good or bad. And I feel like I do a good job about that. Unfortunately, when he was kind of in his own head and living off his ego, people didn't like how I was with him. But I'm like, we're kind of seeing his master plan that everyone talked about, and nothing's really happening with that. It's just kind of like, okay, it launched. I'm glad the product's here, but we just got to wait for the bull market. There's Richard Hart's not more powerful than the market itself. Granted, when he had all that Ethereum to put into Hex, he kind of was, but I mean, he does have billions in sacrifice dollars, so who knows? So I believe in the products for that reason alone. But like I said, once you get one of those outside entities like a sacrifice wallet that maybe pumps the price, and like I said, who knows? This is a conspiracy just for the people listening. This is a conspiracy. But once you get the sacrifice dollars that maybe pump the price of Pulse and PulseX, that's where I'm looking at, okay, let me trim some profits once those pumps kind of chill out a little bit, because it takes big things like that to really move the markets. And I'm not going to get caught up in a 97% dip. Granted, Hex, I was staked, so I mean, I did have a lot liquid that I messed around with, but most of it was staked, so we had no choice. But this time around, I'm like, I'm going to just listen to my own TA like I always have.
That's what I like about you, man. You're not a yes man. So like you said, Richard should, or people like that should keep you around just to hear the truth now and again. And it rubs people the wrong way, but it's funny. And
I mean, he blocked me, and then he unblocked me less than a week later. And it was like, I didn't even ask him for it. I didn't go crazy about it. I was like, man, I'm blocked. All right, well, I made a burner account just to follow him real quick. So I'm like, I kind of still want to see what you're tweeting, but I'm like, okay, I'm blocked. But he literally unblocked me without asking. I guess he made a post like, hey, who needs to be unblocked? I got like 60 notifications being tagged. And I was like, wow, that works. So shout out to the community for that.
Nice, man. Well, listen, you've definitely got a Jenkinz fan base. This has been awesome, man, having you back on, talking charts, talking PulseChain. Where can the people find more about you online, your YouTube, your Twitter?
Yeah, just come find me on Twitter at Cosmo Jenkinz with a Z. I have a YouTube page that I stream.
How often are you streaming these days?
Sorry, what was that?
How often are you streaming these days? I know you're doing quite a bit when it first launched.
Yeah, I mean, so I stream actually often now. I've been doing like streams like this where I go on someone else's channel, so I'm still pretty consistent. But I've been streaming, I'd say at least a few times a week safely. Okay. Yeah, a few times a week, and especially once things get exciting, I have more reason to stream. So I just don't like to get on. Like, I can't come on stream and do a TA stream for 3 straight days because I'm saying the same thing. So I kind of have to give myself, as bad as I want to stream, daily. I'm like, I have to give myself at least 3-4 day gaps because I need something new to talk about when I get back on. So, but yeah, I'm streaming pretty often now.
Awesome, man. Well, I'm glad you're back to it because, yeah, the Hex and PulseChain community is better when Jenkinz is streaming. So
I appreciate it.
Thanks for coming on today, man. And definitely come back on again soon. Let's talk charts in the future. Let's see how things have played out. And yeah, keep us updated.
Will do. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. And yeah, just let me know next time you want me on.
Thanks, bro. Peace.
Peace out.
Cosmo Jenkinz, definitely go and follow his YouTube channel and his Twitter channel. And if you like his Twitter account even, and if you like content like this, do hit that subscribe button and that bell icon so you're notified every time we drop new content on the PowerCity YouTube channel. Thanks for watching, and I will see you on the next one.